clear. And so thank you for those of you that completed the survey. And there were many, many questions and opportunity around WorkCenter and specifically Fulfillment Network. And so we asked Kyle, the program manager, to come on to the peer call today to kind of walk us through and talk us through, answer our questions. So Kyle, welcome back to the East Market and to your call. So thank you for getting that started for us. Obviously, that continues. So with that being said, I'm going to turn it over to Kyle, the man, the myth, the legend. So if you can take us through Fulfillment Network, we appreciate you being on and joining us today.
Thank you so much, Lisa. And let me just say, I miss you guys. I live in a very different world now. And it's so great to see like Brian's face, Derek's face, all the people that I was used to seeing all the time. So I definitely miss you guys, and I'm really excited. And I know there's a ton of questions around the Fulfillment Network, and I'm happy to be here to help you guys, because I think at the end of this time together, you're going to be like, oh, that's not hard at all. Like, let me go teach my MTLs and all that. So it's going to be super easy. And yeah, it's just great to see all these beautiful faces. But instead of me just walking through and giving you a presentation and clicking through stuff, I feel like that's not necessarily the best way to learn. So is there anybody who would be willing to share their screen? They can know nothing about the Fulfillment Network. It's actually better the less they know. And I will walk you. Oh, Juliet raised her hand. She's on it. And I'm going to walk Juliet, unless you were raising your hand for a question, Juliet. And I'm just volunteering you. But.
No, I'm good with walking through.
Awesome. Okay, I appreciate it. And we're going to go through, and really you're going to see how simple it is once you know where to go. So yeah, Juliet, if you don't mind sharing your screen and going into WorkCenter. Yeah, great to see everybody. And please feel free to interrupt. There's no such thing as a dumb question. Like if it was like a question about appointment manager or something, maybe you wouldn't want to ask that publicly, but you know, this is brand new. Like you shouldn't necessarily know everything about it yet. So we'll walk through it. So first, let's see, your screen is ginormous, Juliet. Is it ginormous for everybody else too? Okay, let's see. What does the slice of cheese do? Now I'm just wondering about your screen. I can't help but.
Does it help if I just zoom?
Yeah, that is perfect. Can everybody see it a little bit better? Okay, awesome. Okay, yeah. Thanks, Juliet. Okay, so first, let's take a look at what your tax pros are going to see. I think that's the most important part, because the tax pros need to be able to know what to do. So here we are in WorkCenter. If you don't mind clicking on the Fulfillment tab at the top. And can anybody tell me why Juliet is ineligible for fulfillment returns?
She's not a fulfillment tax pro.
Darn right, she's not. I don't know why I sounded excited about that. I hope if you want to do fulfillment returns, you can one day, Juliet. But yeah, you're exactly right. So she can't see anything here because she's not a fulfillment tax pro. So this screen has nothing to do with leading a fulfillment tax pro, leading your district. It's all about what a tax pro sees and a tax pro being able to go in and pull down a return. So does anybody have any questions about this screen? Because I know there was a lot of confusion at the beginning, because we had leaders going in here wondering why they couldn't see anything. And rightfully so, because it's brand new. Okay, so that's what we see there. That's where your Fulfillment Network tax pros need to go. And speaking of which, today we are pulling the data or rerunning the data. So any tax pro that meets the criteria, so they're level 2, they have an 80% or higher intent to return, and they've done at least 15% virtual tools, so far this season, they are going to be added to the Fulfillment Network. So they should be added and have functionality to be able to pull returns by January 31st. But at least we're refreshing that data. And I know based off the reporting, I think John O'Connell's entire district is going to be in the Fulfillment Network, because they're at like 140% virtual tool usage. I'm just kidding, it's probably half that, but yeah. So it's going to be pretty nice to be able to get more Fulfillment Network tax pros in there working. So this is what the tax pro sees. So now let's, Sheena raised her hand. Yes, Sheena.
Yep, quick question. So can a fulfillment tax pro, regardless of the office they're assigned to, see from this screen every available fulfillment return for our district from here?
Yes. Okay. You're exactly right. So when a return, and thank you for making that not a hard question, because Greg's comment about his workload completely distracted me for a sec. But yes, so any return that's uploaded into the Fulfillment Network in your district is going to show up on the screen for your Fulfillment Network tax pros. Yeah, great question, Tina. Is there any other questions before we move on from here?
Yeah, Kyle, I
Right.
have a quick question.
Mhm.
So just to better understand it, obviously, I'm able actually to see some fulfillment returns that are there. The DGM cannot, under any circumstances, reassign. It has to be done by an MTL, or am I just reading that wrong?
No, so from this, so you can't reassign a fulfillment return to a tax pro. The tax pro has to go in and pull it down themselves. And then after that, you could reassign it if you needed to. So let's say the fulfillment network tax pro pulls it down. They, for God forbid, have to go home sick and it's just sitting there. Then you could go in and reassign the return just like a regular return. And we'll get into that dashboard in a sec. Yeah, at no point can you actually pull one down and like assign it to a tax pro.
So if an MTL sees that there are, let's say, 2 or 3 returns on their fulfillment network, they can easily ask the tax pro at either their pods to go up and download the return?
Oh yeah, definitely. And so in this screen right here where it says fulfillment, if there's any returns in the fulfillment network that can be pulled down, there's going to be a number in a little white bubble just to the right of the word fulfillment. So let's say, let's see, Juliet's district had 3 fulfillment network returns eligible to be pulled down. There'd be a little number 3 next to the word fulfillment. And that's how your tax pros would, and yourself would be able to go in and see how many returns are eligible. So, does that make sense, Dennis?
It does, and I appreciate that. But the only clarification I want is, so that MTL has nothing to do with it as well. It's pretty much more of a identifying that there are 3 and then assign and then just call in or having a conversation to pull them down.
Yep, you're exactly right, Dennis. And I apologize.
Thanks,
Yeah, I said all that and didn't even answer your question. I will say there's a decent amount of MTLs that are fulfillment network tax pros. If you think about some of your MTLs that are maybe like a level 1 or 2 and they're doing their kids' return that's in college, they probably use a virtual tool for that. So let's say, or sorry, they'd have to be at least a level 2. But if they did say 5 returns last year, and one of those had a virtual tool because they were doing it for a family member somewhere else, which is pretty likely, that MTL is going to be a fulfillment network tax pro. So then, if to Dennis's point, if it's a fulfillment network tax pro that's an MTL, they'd actually be able to go in here and see and pull down returns. So I know that sort of murkies the water a little bit, but Dennis, does that make sense?
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Awesome. Thanks, Dennis. And let's see, who raised their hand first? And you guys are rolling with the questions. We're still in the tax pro screen. Okay, Sandra, you've got a question.
I do, thank you. Maybe you just said it, but I don't know if you completely said what I'm looking for. So whether the client is coming here from .com or has been reassigned within the district, or if it's in here because the rest of our region, somebody in the region didn't pick it up within the number of hours, will they all come here? Everything's coming here?
Yeah, so this is where you'd see anything that's eligible for your district. So, or this is where a tax pro would see anything that's eligible within your district. So to Sandra's point, if somebody goes on .com and they say, I don't have a tax pro, I just recognize the brand H&R Block, I want H&R Block to do my return, boom, into the fulfillment network based off of the zip code. So it's not going to be like a TPR where it could show up from anywhere. It's going to be from your home geography. It's going to go into your fulfillment network within your district. And of course, all that is based off of WebCDB. The other ways that a return would go into the fulfillment network is at the front desk. So let's be real, your tax pros don't need to necessarily know how to put a return into the fulfillment network because it's going to happen at the front desk. So a client walks in, the CSP, ATL, whoever's up front, talk to the client. They don't have a tax pro, they're a new client. Again, they just recognize our brand. They don't want to sit with a tax pro. They just want us to do their return. That would be uploaded into the fulfillment network. And those returns would populate in the screen. So other returns that will populate here are if you as the DGM go in and reassign returns to the fulfillment network. So say, God forbid you've got somebody with COVID or somebody who's having to quarantine. That never happens, right? They're going to be out for 10 days or however long. You could go in and reassign their workload into the fulfillment network to make sure it's still getting done. So all of those would populate here for a tax pro to see. And Sandra, sorry, I think I didn't just answer your question. I might have beaten a dead horse continuing to talk about it, so sorry.
I got it. All right, thank you so much.
Okay, thanks, Sandra. And let's see, I know, Samantha, did we answer your question before we roll on to Tom?
We're still in the Tax Pro view, so my question was more on the leadership view. So I took my hand down because I'll just wait until you get there. I don't want to try to.
Okay. Well, hopefully I'm going to answer your question anyways, and you're going to be like, yep, got it. But, okay, Tom, you have a question?
Okay, so I had the initial question that Heather had about the franchise and the zip code and routing, so the one in chat. But my other question, based on what you just said, so from a process standpoint, if I'm a client, I'm a new client, I come in, that office is jam-packed, it's a walk-in. We're not going to be able to get them on the calendar. So are you saying we start that as a digital drop-off? The client scans their documents, and because they're not assigned to an individual tax professional, they're going to end up here, or are we scanning in the documents and putting it in there, or both?
Great question. So both. So when you go to start the new service, and I don't know if you can get into that tab, Juliet. I guess not, because we're in the browser version. But if you go into Workcenter and start a new service for a client, it's going to give you an option, and it even says something along the lines of not worried about who does the return, like send to fulfillment network, and you check that little bubble, then you click send to network. So in Office, that's exactly how it would work, Tom. Did that answer your question?
Yeah, it does. Awesome. Thank you.
Awesome. Thanks, Tom. And oh, by the way, Tom, I didn't see your question in chat because I've got the little hand raising thing up.
It was Heather had asked where the heck about if a franchise has the same zip code, what does the routing look like? Because we have franchises in the same town as us and Block Advisors.
So literally right before this, and why I hopped on at the last second, I was in a franchise fulfillment network call, which goes very differently because going through .com and through the zip codes, everything comes to the company offices. So in terms of fulfillment network and going through .com, there's no way for returns to be uploaded to a franchise office. Theirs works a little bit different in terms of tax pros and everything. So yeah, if it's a zip code uploaded, it's coming to a company office instead of franchise. So hopefully this group is much more excited than the franchises were to hear that news. So, okay, any other questions before we keep rolling? I love the fact that we're still on the Tax Pro screen. We're like 13 minutes in, so great questions, everybody, because the goal is when we finish this for you guys to be so comfortable with it that it's just simple. Okay, so this is what the Tax Pro screen looks like. Now, if you will go into dashboards, Juliet, and I'm going to show you as a leader where you need to be working, where you need to be managing your district. So if you see there office returns and outbound fulfillment returns, Juliet, if you don't mind clicking on the outbound fulfillment returns, this is going to show you, this is a way to look at and see everything that's happening within your district. So in progress, this is going to be everything that's in your WIP that's a fulfillment network return. So any returns that have been pulled down and are actively being worked on, they're going to be listed out here. And obviously there's none that are being worked on, or else you'd see them right here. So you've also got the complete tab where it would show complete ones that you could go in and look at, and not served where it's going to show not served ones that you can go in and look at. So obviously there's no returns in Juliet's district right now. And correct me if I'm wrong, but Juliet, don't y'all have like 50 fulfillment network tax pros or something?
Absolutely, we have several.
Yeah, y'all need to get on this. Come on, upload some returns here. Geez, we're getting ready for first peak. But this is where they'd be listed out and you'd be able to see them. And you could also go in and reassign them from this point as well. So, okay, any questions here? All this is just a list out of what's happening. And there is a dash. Oh, sorry, go ahead, Samantha.
Sorry, Kyle. That's where my question lied. Do we see it at a district level? Because when I'm going in, it seems like I have to click on offices, individual offices, to see these returns. Is there a way to see it at a district level, what's in the district right now, without having to go into each office?
Great question, Samantha, and thank you for bringing that up. If that was your phone going off in the background, you're getting a lot of notifications there. Geez, your people need to calm down. So you're exactly right. Right now, you can only see it at the office level. So you'd have to go in and change offices to see what's going on. So thank you for that, Samantha. There is a dashboard that's coming out. It's being built right now. That's going to look a little bit more like the TPR dashboard and what we're used to seeing. So hopefully it'll be rolled out before we really get rolling into first peak. That is coming out. You'll know when it's there because it's going to be pretty obvious. But it's it's more like the TPR dashboard that we're used to seeing. So great question,
Oh.
Samantha.
So to confirm, we have to go into each office in order to see. Okay, thank you.
Exactly.
So much.
Yeah. Right now. Yeah, thank you for asking that because I definitely blew over that. So let's see, Lynn has her hand up. Hey, Lynn.
Hi, good morning. I had a couple questions. One, the first question I had was, I actually had one where I had my RD in and we actually played with this a little bit and took a return that was currently in an office and put it up there to be pulled down by Fulfillment Pro and then pulled back to the person, the actual regular Pro. But what happened is I still see that return that was moved over originally to that Fulfillment Pro in progress. It was reassigned back, so I don't understand why it's still sitting in there as in progress going to the Fulfillment Pro. And I don't want it to be pulled away from from the regular Pro now.
Well, the fact that it's in there in progress is just because you put it in the fulfillment network, so it's going to be flagged and be in there. So you're saying that it needs to be reassigned back to the original Tax Pro, is that correct?
Well, I had reassigned it. I had gone, I'd gone in and saw that she had pulled it down, and then I reassigned it back to the original. So it was pulled down originally as a hold under the Fulfillment Pro as a hold in another office, and then it was reassigned. I actually did the little arrow thing and reassigned it back to the Pro, the Pro in the regular office that I borrowed it from. But it's still showing in progress under the fulfillment. If I looked under outbound fulfillment returns, it's still sitting there as an in progress, and it's still showing under the Fulfillment Pro's name. It shouldn't be there like that anymore.
You're right. It shouldn't.
Go ahead.
No, you're exactly right. It shouldn't. Has the return been completed and paid for by the client?
No, the return is moved back to the Pro, who the Pro who's not in the fulfillment network. So they moved it back, and it's on hold under her queue, albeit in a different office because the fulfillment network person was in office A and she's in office B. So it's showing under hold in the under the non-fulfillment Pro's name in the Fulfillment Pro's office, but it's also showing in this outbound fulfillment return under the Fulfillment Pro's name.
Yep, I got you, Lynn. So once that return is paid for and completed, and just ignore it in the outbound fulfillment return column there. But once it's paid for and completed, let me know if it doesn't go away from that in progress list. Okay.
Got it. Part two of my question was something that was raised actually in my regional meeting just now, had to do with getting an accurate list of who all is in the fulfillment network. I mean, when I was figuring out who was in mine, I used the list that we came up that was sent to us by corporate back when we were picking out OLA and IFA people. But I found that when I was looking in each of the individual offices, the number of fulfillment pros or the fulfillment pros that are listed varied. Some offices showed 2, some offices showed 6, some offices showed something higher or lower. So it wasn't consistent. So, and now with everything changing, because the 2 weeks ended and they probably revamped everything to see who all is now in the network, who wasn't. I need an accurate list of who's in.
So that just, excuse me, that should definitely still be that original list. I'm not sure why it would have fluctuated. If you can send me a specific example, I'll be happy to look at it. But you'll also get.
I thought they were re-examining the fulfillment network list every 2 weeks to see who would be qualifying, and I thought the first pass was like today, actually.
Yep, you're exactly right. So today is the first time that we're pulling down the data and rerunning the numbers so far for the tax season. Mm-hmm. So by the 31st, your next batch of tax pros will be added on. You're not going to lose any from your original list, but on the 28th, you'll receive a communication from Amy Walker that goes over it, and Sundari is also going to send you your list as well of your total district. So it's going to have all your people that are already active and then the additional ones as well. So say you've got 10 right now and it goes up to 20, you'll get that full list of 20 tax pros.
Okay. And I can definitely shoot you a screenshot of those offices that showed 2 and some offices showed 6.
Okay. Sounds good. But yeah, everybody should have that original list that came out, I think it was like late October, where we it sort of went under the radar because we were so focused on TPR and OLA and IFA. Yeah, that original list should still be accurate, at least until the 31st.
Thank you.
Okay. Yep. Thanks, Lynn. Any other questions so far? Okay, so let's sort of get into what Lynn was talking about reassigning. So first of all, if you don't mind going back to the office returns tab next to outbound fulfillment, because keep in mind right now, to Samantha's point, outbound fulfillment is just listing out what's in the office. So if you don't mind scrolling down in the screen to bulk reassign, it's going to be on the bottom left of your Work Center screen. And if you don't mind clicking, so we're going to click bulk reassign, and think about this as in TPR, when you need to bulk reassign returns to a different tax pro. Same concept, works very similar. Let's see, if can you go into an office that has some returns in it? If this one doesn't have anything going on, we just basically need a list of returns. I don't know if you can or not.
It's not letting me go out of.
Is anybody?
Hey, Kyle, I'll share my screen if you want. I think I have something on mine.
Awesome, that'd be great. Thanks, Dennis.
Let me try it.
That's what I'm talking about, Gary. Way to step up.
And Juliet, thanks for driving so far.
You're welcome.
King of Suffolk.
Can you see my screen?
Yep, awesome. Thanks so much, Dennis. So Dennis has clicked in the bottom left-hand corner the bulk reassign, which is why it says cancel bulk reassign. So he's actually in that right now. So over on the left-hand side, you see next to Fahim Hamid's name, there's that little green bubble that we're used to seeing in TPR. So he can click as many of those as he wants. So we won't actually do it because I'm not trying to make your tax pros mad. But if you don't mind clicking a couple of them, we won't actually reassign them. So yeah, give that one a little click if you don't mind, Dennis. Okay, so see now that one's been selected, and you can select Latricia if you don't mind. And don't worry, we won't actually do it. So he could select as many returns in here as he wants. And see, then at the bottom, you can either click just like in TPR to reassign those returns to a different tax pro, or you can send them to the fulfillment network. And by all means, don't do that, Dennis. Not that I need to tell you that, but can you guys think of any reason why you might need to send a tax pro's returns to the fulfillment network in bulk?
Out sick with COVID.
Exactly, Heather. Yeah, out sick, having to quarantine. I mean, you all know all the stuff that can come up during a tax season that tax pros go through. So yeah, you might have to reassign their entire book of business. Or say you've got a few clients. Oh, this is my favorite example. I had a tax pro named Mark. Mark would hoard returns, and he didn't do that many. He did like 200, but he was a procrastinator. He'd have a stack of returns that he hid, and he would wait until like April 10th. He's like, my clients aren't in a hurry. They're worried more about me doing their return than getting their refund back. And I'm like, do you hear yourself talking right now? That is insane. So this gives you the ability to go in and reassign that WIP to other tax pros. And of course, you'd want to have that conversation first before you start moving those returns. But if you've got one of those hoarding tax pros, this is a way to declutter them, you could say. So, any questions about bulk reassignments? Nice. Dennis, thanks for jumping in and driving. Awesome. So what questions do you guys have? And Dennis and Juliet, if you don't mind keeping your screen up in case any questions come up where we need to go back in.
Kyle, I do have a question for you around, so we talked about tax pro visibility to be able to see what returns are in the fulfillment network to pull down. We were also then able to see in the work in progress screen the outbound fulfillment returns, so I can see what's in progress, right? So what has been pulled down, what they're working on, what's been completed. Where is my visibility to see at a district level returns that are available to be pulled down but have not been pulled down yet?
Great question, Derek. So if you will go back to the home tab, if you don't mind, Dennis, and there where it says fulfillment, that's where that number would be, right next to where the word fulfillment, and it would say how many returns are in there. But right now, that's only viewable by Fulfillment Network tax pros. So this the new dashboard that's being built right now will actually give you a leader's view of how many are in there without you having to have a fulfillment network tax pro send you like an hourly update of how many returns are in there.
So with that in mind, then that our visibility is not that strong at this moment. Best course of action for us then would be to, one, make sure we know who our fulfillment pros are and that there's an expectation that they're looking at this home dashboard periodically throughout the day, and that our leaders are following up with them to, take a look at it, and that the leaders are also going into this the WIP dashboard to check the status of returns from fulfillment that are in progress.
Yep, great call, Derek. And I think especially since most districts have at least one MTL with access as a quote fulfillment network tax pro, it's great to maybe make that person like a captain who sends you updates every couple hours, because of course you don't want any returns to leave your district, because after 8 business hours, not just 8 clock hours, that's when they would be eligible and they'd go to the region pool. You would still have access to them because you're part of that region. Yeah, you're exactly right, Derek. It would be great to set up like a captain or something who's monitoring that and giving you regular updates just for peace of mind for you.
Yeah.
Kyle, along with that dashboard that's being built, will that be updating in real time, or is that going to be something that updates, first thing in the morning and it's stagnant through the day, since this could have a lot of flux during the day?
Great question, Victoria. So that's going to be something that's live, just like the TPR dashboard, because it's going to directly reflect whatever is in WorkCenter at that moment.
Excellent. Thank you.
Yep, thank you. Great question. Keep the questions coming. I love this.
I have one more. When it rolled out, there was a question about timing, and it's sitting in the network for 8 hours. For the ones that come from .com, do we know, like, if it drops in overnight, 8 hours is a very, very quick amount of time. Sometimes we're coming in, if it drops at like 11 p.m., is it going to count for the next business day, or does the clock start ticking as soon as the return drops into fulfillment?
Nope, and Derek answered it too. So it starts during business hours. So once that's business hours Central Time. So it's still going to factor in the same way. But Central Time, if that return comes in at 1 a.m., it's not going to start for your offices that clock until 9 a.m. But don't get me wrong, if a tax pro is in, or 10 a.m. if that's when the offices are opening, Eastern Time. But keep in mind, you can still pull that return in at 8 a.m., 9 a.m., whenever a tax pro goes in there. But that clock isn't going to start Eastern Time until 10 a.m. if it comes in overnight, assuming that the central offices are open at 9. I know it might be a little bit different during peak. But
okay.
So you can sleep well at night and know you're not losing fulfillment network returns.
Hey, Kyle.
Mm-hmm.
Will there be any additional reporting coming through the hub around FTP and the flow, the number of returns, or any of that, or will it just be strictly live reporting via dashboard?
As of right now, it'll just be live reporting via dashboard, because we've been working through so many other reporting issues that we're not trying to add anything else. We're trying to fix everything else that's broken before we start adding to the list. So I think next tax season, I think that's definitely on their board to be able to get reporting about it. But yeah, I think right now, especially, we're focused on this WorkCenter dashboard to be able to give you guys real-time data.
Alrighty, thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
Kyle, I'm really excited about this because as I think about the call we were on yesterday with Bob, we talked a lot around schedules and having accurate schedules, not trying to look green on a report, but really just be honest with ourselves about, hey, who do I really have in terms of staffing? And I think what's great about the fulfillment network is, like, in my district, I have 42 fulfillment tax pros, and I have offices right now that, due to COVID, due to people saying, they're scared of Omicron, they've resigned, different reasons, I'm now facing staffing challenges in certain offices where I'm not going to look green on a report, and I'm not going to try to look green on a report. But I think what this allows me to do is say, okay, well, if that office is supposed to have, 3 tax pros in the afternoon or evening, and right now I only have 1 or 2, I actually have 42 tax pros that are available at that time to help, because those clients that come in, I can then light that client up, put them into the fulfillment network, and I've got 42 tax professionals that can pull that down and begin working on it. So I think if we all go at it with this mentality that we can really, instead of focusing on office specific capacity, look at it at a broader band of I've got district capacity now to serve clients all across the board, no matter what office they walk in. I've got people everywhere that can serve. I think we'll be able to address a lot of those capacity constraints that we may be running into as time moves on. So I love this.
Yeah, I completely agree with you, Derek. It's absolutely amazing. You have your whole district, because how many regions last year were we building Power Automate for to try to move returns between districts or between regions, and just to satisfy a client, where this automatically does it all. So you're exactly right. You've got district level capacity right now. Pretty cool. Any other questions? That I have not been looking at the chat. I've been oh, sorry, Octavia's got her hand raised. My bad.
So I have a question. So I was just listening to Derek, and I was wondering, so if we decide to bulk reassign and move returns into the fulfillment network because of staffing issues, and it immediately goes to our district first, and then does the normal 8-hour rules apply, and then it moves to regional?
Yep, that's correct. And then after the region, it would move to the market level. I don't think many are going to leave a district, that's for sure. And I think even fewer are going to leave a region. Yeah, you're exactly right. So Octavia, it would be really important to be very strategic. So let's say you've got a tax pro out with COVID, God forbid, and you've got to reassign 20 returns. And let's say right now you've only got 2 fulfillment tax pros. That might not be the best thing. You might need to manually reassign those to your other tax pros. You definitely want to reassign them, but definitely do what's best for your business as well. And hopefully we're going to have a ton more fulfillment network tax pros, with this next batch. I'm sure we will, because you guys have been killing the virtual 12%.
Okay, thank you. I appreciate that.
And
Somebody
Dennis,
you
you can
their screen. They might want to share.
At least it wasn't a crazy email. So thanks, Dennis.
Kyle,
Uh-huh.
it's MJ. I was gonna ask Dennis to put his screen back up. I want to see what it looks like for him, filtered to dashboard, district view, snapshot, because my question is based on the workload.
Okay. And Dennis, thanks for driving again. Oh, and then the snapshot.
The snapshot. All right.
And you're talking about workload in the bottom left-hand corner?
Yes, and see where it says fulfillment tax pros, like should that be our count? I have a number 1 listed there, and I have no idea what that is for.
So that's actually odd that you have 1 listed there. So that should be your count, but that's not accurate yet. So at some point that will be accurate, but it's not yet.
So that will be something we can see as those numbers increase and decrease, how many more entered into our fulfillment network?
Yep. You're exactly right. And right now it's going to be pretty hard to miss until the 1st of March. Like, you're going to get an email on the 28th with your list of tax pros. It's going to happen 2 weeks later and 2 weeks later. Starting in March, it could possibly fluctuate every day, assuming that IT can, get the technology working by that point. But every night the numbers are going to be run. So you could have 40 fulfillment network tax pros one day and 43 the next day and 38 the next day. So it's going to continually pull the virtual tool usage numbers, on a day-to-day basis. But we're still working on that. That's going to be in March. And then that's when that fulfillment tax pros little line there is going to be really important, because you won't just know, oh, I've got like 33 for 2 more weeks.
And will that expand to actually a list or just a number?
It'll be a list.
Okay.
Yep.
All right. Thank you.
We've piqued Samantha's curiosity. Like, And somebody else had their hand raised too, I believe, and then they lowered it. I think it was Sheena. Sheena, did we answer your question?
I'm good, thank you.
Okay.
Hey,
Okay,
Kyle,
more
I got
questions.
Kyle, I got another question for you. Could you cover with us again, because I know we will start to either add people to fulfillment or remove people from fulfillment. Could you walk through us what the qualifications are, so that way when these upcoming lists come out and people either get removed or added, we can help re-clarify with leaders and tax pros why they've joined fulfillment or been removed and what they can do to get back in fulfillment later on?
Definitely a great question, Derek. And so just to be clear, while we're manually adding, right now we're pulling that list up through the end of February. We'll be doing it manually instead of an automation that takes care of it. Right now, nobody's going to be removed until that automation starts working, hopefully in March. So if you've got a Fulfillment Network tax pro that hasn't done a single virtual tool usage so far, I mean, first of all, that's bad, but they would still be a Fulfillment Network tax pro because we're not going to take anybody off until we move to this automatic process in March. But the criteria are they have to be level 2. There's 3 criteria. Level 2, they have to have an intent to return from last season of at least 80%. And now that's going to be this season. So everything we're pulling today is as of this season. So level 2, 80% intent to return, and they have to have used the virtual tools on at least 15%, 15% of their returns that they've completed. Any questions around that?
Intent to return, you said that was going for current year now, not last year anymore, right?
Exactly. For the reporting that for the tax pros that are about to get added on as the next batch, that's current year.
Thanks.
All right, great question. What else do we have? And Dennis, I'm happy your workload is light. I'm sure that's not a metaphor for life in general. It's just for your fulfillment returns. Has this been helpful, sort of breaking it down, telling you where to go? Any other questions?
Do you have an anticipated date for all this to happen?
So you will get your list on the 28th, possibly a little bit sooner, but we're committing to the 28th. And the new or the additional fulfillment tax pros will be able to pull returns on January 31st. And then it'll rinse and repeat. I don't know the exact dates off the top of my head, but it's basically every 2 weeks from this point on for February. So.
And what about all the new changes going into WorkCenter and having the new, making, seeing all the new updates for the Fulfillment Network? When do you anticipate that?
That I don't know, and that's really just the dashboard for leaders. But in terms of other WorkCenter changes, I don't know. That's honestly not in my lane, Lynn. Let's see. John asked about the original. Yep, 102521 from internal field agent. Awesome, thanks, John. All right, and I haven't been monitoring the chat, so has anybody seen anything in the chat that I need to answer?
Kyle, can you share with us, you mentioned the 8 hours was based on Central Time. Do you have the time, like at what time Central Time to what time Central Time are the start and stop points for the 8-hour clock?
Just the average office open hour time. So if it opens at 9 a.m. Central Time, it's basically your average office, so not like an outpost office or anything, but if your offices are opening at 9 a.m. right now, then your clock would start ticking at 10 a.m. So, and if your offices are closing at 8 p.m., then your clock would stop ticking at 9 p.m. So even though the clock is still running for an extra hour at night, you're getting an extra hour in the morning. It makes me think of daylight savings time. You're getting an extra hour in the morning before the clock starts.
Right. So technically, if a return came in, let's say, I don't know, an hour after we technically close, because Central Time is running an hour after us, you still then have 7 hours in the morning because the clock turns back on, right?
Or 8 hours technically, because if it came in, what you're asking is true. So okay. I think we're confusing people with the time zone change. But yes, just think of if your office is open at 9, then the clock starts at 10. Dennis, do you have a question?
Yeah, the way that I was looking at it mainly it's just literally 8 business hours. So if it comes at 7 o'clock at night, then we still have an additional 7 hours the next day.
Yeah. you're exactly right. All right, Sheena's got a question. Thanks for that, Dennis.
Yeah, so just kind of going back to those hours, and Derek, definitely that question did help clarify part of my question. So thank you. Next part, for example, last week, and I know that's last week, but we had offices opening 11 to 7 across my district. So would my hours have been 11 to 7, therefore my clocks were only ticking 11 to 7, or my clock's ticking 9 to 9? I think having a set time would be a little easier for us to gauge when our clocks start and stop.
Let me double check on that, Sheena, and get back to you.
Okay.
Because I don't want to tell you the wrong thing. And I'll put it in the chat once I know for sure.
Thank you.
Thanks, Sheena. The last thing I want to do is tell you the wrong thing. Any other questions? Well, Lisa, I will turn it back over to you then.
Thank you, Kyle. Really, really great content. And again, the chat stays live, so any additional questions that come through, I know Kyle has been and will continue to be a great resource for us. So I really appreciate you coming on, walking us through all of that so we can maximize our opportunity with the Fulfillment Network. Any final questions for Kyle before we sign off for today? Going once, going twice.
And if you think of any, just tag me in the chat. That way it gets my attention. I'm like, oh, Marcus had a question, so let me answer that real quick.
All right.